What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Night YouTube channel. In today's video, guys, I'm going to show you how to play my Mint 10 dungeon crawler game that I'm tentatively calling Crypt Crawler. So we are here inside of Tabletop Simulator. This is where you guys are going to be able to play test the game for yourself and give me all of your feedback. So this is going to serve as a little tutorial video to show you how the game works so you guys can jump right in and start playing the game for yourself. So first of all, the first thing I want to mention is the overall theme of the game. It is a fantasy-themed dungeon crawler, stuff you guys are well familiar with by this point. You're going to be heading into a dirty, dark dungeon. You're going to be fighting enemies, collecting loot, items, armors, weapons, all that kind of stuff. And you are trying to survive the dungeon and find some soul crystals in order to spawn a boss, defeat the boss, hopefully survive, and escape the dungeon. So that is the overall theme of the game, and the way to win the game is, as mentioned, you need to find 3 soul crystals, which are these little marbles right here. There's 4 different colors, and whenever you collect 3 of them, it is going to spawn a particular boss. There are 4 different bosses over here that you could see, and depending on which crystals you get, for instance, if you get the blue, red, and orange soul crystals, that will spawn the dragon for you to fight. And then over here, there's 2 other bosses as well. So that is how you beat the game. You want to get 3 of these soul crystals, spawn the boss, and defeat the boss in order to win. The way that you lose the game is, I just lost the marble. The way that you lose the game is if you lose all of your health, which you can see down here. There's this nice tracker that tracks all of your stats. If you ever lose all your health and go down to 0, you lose the game. And if you ever get your poison up to 10, you lose the game. And also, you'll notice, for instance, here on the human character, he has a value with this all-seeing eye symbol. That is your fear level. If you ever reach your fear level, you lose the game as well. So there are a few ways to lose the game, as you could see. Let's back up a little bit so I get all of those soul crystals back. There we go. Let's go ahead and drop that back in the bag. Just like that. Cool. There we go. All right, so those are the ways to win and lose the game. So as mentioned, you have your tracker down here that's going to track all of your different stuff. So the symbols are for health with the heart. This is for poison. This is your fear meter. This is how many footsteps you've taken, which I'll show you in just a moment. This is for your oil in your lantern. This is for your stamina. The gold circle right here is for your gold coins. The skull is for your experience points, and this little crystal thing right here is for your soul fragments. So those are all the different things that you're going to be tracking on your tracker down here. Next, you have a bunch of cards right here. You got 5 double-sided cards, and these are going to serve as the race and the class that you're going to play as. So as you can see, there are 5 each. So there's a human, a gnome, an elf, a lizard folk, and an orc. And then on the backs of those cards, you have the classes. You have the cleric, the ranger, the wizard, the warrior, and the rogue right there. So depending on which race you pick, you'll have 4 other classes that you can play as. So for instance, if you want to play as, let's say you wanted to play as a gnome, you could flip this one over. You could be a gnome rogue, for instance. So you'd put your class card over here and your race card over this way. Then on those cards, you have some stats. So this number right here in this little diamond right here, the 4, that is your armor class. So that is what an enemy is going to have to roll in order to hit you. An enemy would have to roll 4 or better in order to hit you if you're playing as a gnome. Then he's got health in the little red heart right there. That's how much hit points you have. The shield shows how much toughness you have. That's how much damage you're going to mitigate whenever you're getting hit by enemies. The orange diamond is your strength. That's how much extra damage you're going to do whenever you're attacking enemies. The yellow lightning bolt symbol is your speed. That is going to determine who attacks first in combat. If the enemy's speed is equal to or higher than the player's, the enemy will always attack first. Then the blue star is how much stamina you have. That is your maximum stamina. You can't ever go over that. Same thing for your health. In this case with the gnome, 15 is the highest amount of health that you can ever have as the gnome. And then the purple all-seeing eye, as mentioned, is your fear level. If the gnome ever reaches 8 on his fear meter here, he goes insane and you lose the game. So those are all of your stat icons there on the race card. And then over here on the class card, as you can see, for instance, with the rogue, it's going to be the same on the backs of all of them. Like if we flip this one over, you'll have the class up here, and then you're going to have these 3 different boxes. These are 3 different skills that you unlock as your character levels up throughout the game. So as we can see here on the rogue, he's got sneak. It says once per dungeon level, you may move into a room without spending movement, which is pretty powerful. So there's 3 different skills, as you can see, and there's a number in a little white diamond under each one. That's the number of experience points you need to have before you unlock that skill. So once you get 5, like as you can see right here, if we were to get 5 experience points here on our tracker, that would unlock our sneak ability. Then the next one unlocks at 12. So if we got to 12 experience points, then we would unlock our tumble skill as the rogue, all the way down to if we get 19 experience points, we would unlock his final skill of Shadow Strike. So that is how that works with the different skills right there. The next thing to mention is that the main driving core mechanic of the game is this dungeon deck over here, which is placed on the dungeon deck slot. And I've just got like a little mat laid out, like a little play area laid out. This is not final by any means. This will probably change, but just for now, to keep things sort of nice and neat for you guys, I made like a little mock, little like, play area here for you guys to play on. So this is the dungeon deck over this way. These cards, there are 16 of them. They are double-sided. So on one side, you're going to have the map cards, which whenever you are ready to use those, oops, it looks like this got changed. Let me put this back to 90. There we go. Plop that back down. Yeah, so whenever you use these, you will turn it sideways and then lay it here where it says dungeon map. So you'll plop that down right there, and that's going to be the map that you use to move your little meeple around through like this. The rest of the cards are going to be used as resolution cards. So whenever you are moving into rooms, for instance, let's go ahead and plop this down. The first thing you're going to do always is take 1 step on your tracker down here. So you'd move your tracker up on the footsteps, and then you would take your meeple and you would move it into a room, depending on which room you want to move in. You always have to go in where it has S right here. That is the starting location where the stairs are, and you will move into that room. You'll see what symbol is in that room. In this case, it is a green circle. So you'll take the next card in the dungeon deck, you'll flip it over, and you'll use the resolution side of that card. And so, since we're in a room with a green circle, you'll see right here on this card, you've got the green circle that says 1 spider. So that is what's going to spawn in that room. You'll have to fight a spider. If you were in a room with a triangle, a yellow triangle, you'd get an oil. And if you were in a room with a red diamond, you'd have to fight a mage and a skeleton. So yeah, depending on which symbol is in the room that you're in, different things are going to happen. You're going to fight different enemies, you're going to get different loot, so on and so forth. So in this case, you would have to fight a spider. So what you would do is you would go into this little deck right here. These are the enemies, and you would look for the spider. So we can go ahead and move through here. There's the spider enemy right there. And then you would have to fight a spider. Now there's a bunch of different stats on these enemy cards as well, as you can see. So you've got the name of the enemy up at the top, a little mock picture for now, and in that diamond under the picture with the 2 in it, that is the armor class of the enemy. So whenever you roll to hit, you would have to roll a 2 or better in order to hit the enemy. And that's how combat works. So whenever you roll to hit enemies, there is a roll that you have to make with a d6 in order to see if you hit them, if you match or exceed their armor class, and if you do, then you roll for damage. Otherwise, the turn passes to the enemy and vice versa. If they roll and they roll less than your armor class, then they miss you and it's your turn to attack them. And you take turns attacking back and forth until either you die or you defeat and kill the enemy. As you can see underneath their armor class, there are 3 little boxes with some dice in them. You've got a 1, a 2, and a 3 in the first box, a 4 and a 5 in the second, and a 6 in the third. So if you roll a 1, 2, or 3 for the damage for the spider, let's say the spider attacks you and he rolls equal to or higher than your armor class and he scores a hit, he then rolls for damage. If he rolls a 1, 2, or 3, the spider will deal 1 damage. If he rolls a 4 or 5, he'll deal 2 damage. And if he rolls a 6, he'll deal 2 poison damage to you, which is denoted with the 2 and the P. That is for 2 poison. Now keep in mind, this is all very rough, early beta stuff, so there's going to be little symbols and whatnot in the final version of the game, but just so you know, the P stands for poison. And then you can see at the bottom of the card, it has a bunch of symbols that you may already recognize. So the skull with the 2 in it, that's how many experience points you get whenever you defeat the spider. The purple crystal is how many soul fragments you get whenever you defeat the spider. The gold circle is how many gold coins you get. The blue diamond all the way to the right, that's how much loot you get. And of what type. In this case, it's got a little dash going through it, which means the spider does not drop any loot. And then the heart, of course, is its hit points. The shield is its toughness, how much damage it mitigates whenever it gets hit. And then the orange diamond is the same. It is your strength, so that's how much extra damage it's going to do if it hits you. And then, of course, the yellow lightning bolt is the speed. And the spider is very fast. It's actually the fastest enemy in the game with 8 speed, so it pretty much always attacks you first. And so, in this instance, like we said, you'd move into the room. We flipped over the resolution card. It's got a spider that we need to fight, so we got the spider out. And now we are in dungeon level 1, which is indicated by this red die right here. Every time you make it out of a map card by acquiring the key and then making it to the exit over here and leaving the card, you move to the next dungeon level, in which case you would flip the die to show that you're on the next dungeon level. So you can never exit this card until you go and acquire the key right here, which you can plop into the room. And then once you make it over that way, you can pick up the key and then make your way to the exit. So this is important. Which dungeon level you're on is important when you're fighting enemies, because that is going to show you how many modifier cards you need to draw in order to add different modifications to the enemy. So you're going to draw one of these cards. These dungeon cards over here, these dungeon/resolution cards, are multi-purpose. They do a bunch of different things. So in this case, since we're on level 1 of the dungeon, we're fighting a spider, you would draw the top card off of the dungeon deck, flip it over, and then you would see you've got these 4 symbols up at the top of the card. You've got a heart, a shield, an orange diamond, and a yellow lightning bolt. And those values are going to get added to the same values on the enemy card. So he's going to gain 0 health, but he's going to gain 1 toughness and 1 strength, and he will gain 0 speed. So his toughness will actually go up to 1, and his strength will go up to 2. And I've provided these little dice over here, so if you want to plop these down over those values, so that way you can see that those are the new numbers for those values for his toughness and his strength. And yeah, and then you would go ahead and fight the enemy. So we'll do a little mock round of combat real quick so you guys can see how that works. Let's go ahead and set our health to 15 since we're playing as the gnome. And we're going to go ahead and start attacking. So the spider is going to attack first since he has 8 speed to the 3 speed of the gnome. And he needs to roll a 4. So the spider is going to roll the dice, and if he rolls 4 or higher, he's going to hit, and he does. Now we're going to roll for damage. So we go ahead and roll that d6. He rolled a 2, and if he rolls a 1, 2, or 3, he does 1 damage, but he also has 2 strength. So you're going to add his strength value to the damage that he rolls, which is 3, and we have 0 toughness and no armor yet, so that means that we take 3 damage and go down from 15 to 12, and then it would be our turn to attack. So the spider has 2 armor class. We need to roll 2 or better, and we rolled a 2, and let's see how much damage we're going to deal. So we rolled a 3, and we start with the club. As of right now, this is the only starting equipment in the game. I might add different starting equipment for each class and stuff like that. I'm not entirely sure, because you have to remember, this all has to fit inside of a mint tin, and I'm kind of maxed out right now with where I'm at in the game. So it's still something I'm fiddling around with, and feedback that I would definitely want from you guys. So I rolled a 3, and as you can see on the club, if you roll a 1, 2, or 3, you deal 1 damage. And if we check our gnome, his little orange diamond symbol for strength says 0, so we do 1 damage. And if you notice over here, the spider has 1 toughness on him, so that's going to mitigate all that damage. Now, this is something else important to mention at this point. The gnome has 8 stamina right here, so we're going to go ahead and set that up. He's got 8 stamina. Now, stamina can be used for dealing extra damage. It can be used for a couple other things too, but it's essentially used for dealing extra damage. So every turn that you attack and deal damage, you can spend up to 3 stamina. So you could spend 1, 2, or 3 stamina, and that will deal 1 extra damage per stamina that you spend. So in this case, if we spend 3 stamina and go down to 5, that adds 3 to our 1 damage. So we have 4 damage minus the 1 toughness is 3, and the spider has 3 hit points, so we have defeated the spider. So we'd go ahead and remove these dice. We killed the spider. He gives us 2 XP, as you can see by the white skull, and he gives us 2 soul fragments, as you can see by the purple fragment symbol. So we would grab our tracker down here, our little thing on the tracker. We'd go up to 2, and then we'd gain 2 of these as well. And we would also gain 1 gold, so we'll move the gold up like this right there. So there we go. And then we have defeated the spider, and we would move on from there and move into other rooms. Another thing to check too is you could see on these resolution cards, like down at the bottom half, it's got the purple star and it says leftovers next to it. If that was a green circle in that box where the purple star is, then there would be an event that we would have to do on that card because we're in a room with a green circle. So there can be events as well. You're going to check the top half of the card, and then you're also going to check that bottom half to see if the symbol in the room you're in matches it. You might also notice too that there are purple stars. So there are no purple stars in any of the rooms on any of these map cards. That is for if you push your luck, which I'll show you right now. So the next thing we'd have to do is we'd take another step on our tracker here. And it's important to mention, once you reach 10 steps, it burns up your oil. So you're always going to start with 1 oil. That would burn up your oil. It would move down to 0. And from then on, every time you move in the dungeon, you'll still keep track of your steps. You're also going to move your fear meter up by 1 every time because you're moving in the dark. And if you ever reach the maximum number of fear on your particular race card, then as mentioned earlier, you'll lose the game. So you definitely want to keep your lantern lit and try to find oil as you're moving through the dungeon. So we went ahead and moved up on the movement tracker here. We're going to move into a different room. Let's go into this room. And since we've cleared this room, we'll take one of these and we'll drop it in there. So that way, if we ever move back into that room is cleared. We're not going to draw another resolution card for that room. And this is just to keep track so you know which rooms you've already been in. So we move into this room and there is there's a red diamond. So we're going to go ahead and flip another dungeon card to the resolution side. And as you can see here, the orange diamond says that a red diamond says that it's 1 ooze and 1 rat. Let's say that we don't want to fight the ooze or the rat. We want to push our luck. So you could do this once per room that you move in. You can either settle and do whatever the first card is, or you can push your luck and flip the next card over. We'll flip the next card, and this is literally a perfect example. So as you can see, up in the top left of this card is a purple star. So since we pushed our luck, we have to do whatever the symbol is in the top left on this card. And as you can see, the purple star correlates to 1 food, 1 oil, and 1 rare loot. So we got very, very lucky. We would get a food, which brings your stamina up by 1. We would get 1 oil, so we'd move our oil up by 1. And we would get 1 rare loot. So this is a perfect time to show you how the loot system works. So we have this deck of 9 cards over here. They're double-sided. There are 6 of each type of loot. There are 6 commons, 6 uncommon, and 6 rare loot. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your dice, and it says that we get a rare loot. So we're going to roll it, and we got a 2. And then you would search through here, and you would find the rare loot that has a 2. So let's see. Let's go ahead and search through here, and we'll find the rare loot that has a 2. I think these are all, that's 4, 5, and 6. Let's go ahead and put these back, flip it over. And it should be right here. Yeah, so we would get the Warhammer. So we'd have a new weapon that we could put over our club. And now we have the Warhammer, which does 3, 3, and 7 damage for each of its 3 different rolls that you can get right there. So that's a pretty powerful weapon that we got. And then the next thing that you'll notice is there is an event at the bottom of the card with a purple star in it, the golden idol. So we would also do that event. It says a golden angel idol rests atop a marble pedestal. Offer it 3 gold to receive a blessing. Unfortunately, we don't have enough gold to do it. But if we did, we would roll a d6, and then there are 3 different outcomes. If we rolled a 1, 2, or a 3, we would get +1 hit points and -1 fear. If we rolled a 4 through 5, we'd get +2 hit points and -1 fear. And if we rolled a 6, we'd get +3 HP, and we would get to put our fear down by 2. So if we're on 2 fear here and we rolled a 6, we'd get to put it back down to 0, because you definitely want to keep your fear meter down as you're moving through the dungeon. And then once that's done, you would move on. So you would take one of these, plop it down in the room, you'd move into the next room, and you'd keep on going just like that. And this key should be over here in this room. So in this room, we have a green circle. You draw a card, and here we go. Perfect example. As you can see, up in the top right-hand corner of the card is a symbol. It's got one of those little soul crystal fragment symbols up in the top, and it's sitting on top of a shrine. So these are shrines, and you need to find these in order to convert your soul fragments into soul crystals. So for every 5 soul fragments you have, let's just say for the purposes of this tutorial, if you had 5 soul fragments right now, we moved into this room, it's a green circle. It says that the green circle is a skeleton. We would have to fight the skeleton. Once we defeat the skeleton, then we have access to the shrine in the room. So what you would do is you would spend 5 or combine 5 of your fragments. So you'd set this back down to 0 and it would turn it into a soul crystal. Now you can go ahead and shuffle up. Sorry about that, phone noises. Let me mute that real quick. You can go ahead and shuffle up this little pouch over here, and that's got the 4 different soul crystals in it, and then you'll draw one out at random, and boom, there you go. So we have the orange soul crystal. And as mentioned in the beginning of the video, once you get 3 soul crystals, then you spawn the boss that has the corresponding color of the 3 soul crystals that you acquired, and there are the 4 different bosses. So yeah, so that's how that works. There's also one other symbol that can be up in the top right hand corner of the card. Let's see if we can find it real quick. It is going to be just for right now, it's a $sign. It'll be something different in the final version, but yeah, as you can see, or right there, we got the $sign up in the top right corner. That means that this room has a shop in it. Now, once you would finish resolving all of the actions on this card at the top, and then the event, if there was an event that you had to resolve, then you would have access to the shop. And that is this card over this way. So the shop, you're going to have access to the shelf level depending on which room you are in, which symbol is in the room that you're in. So let's just say, for instance, that we did move into this room with the green circle and we flipped this card, we fought the rat, we got our food, and then we went to the shop. We would be able to have access to the bottom shelf where the green flags are, and those would be the items that we'd have access to. If we were in, say, for instance, this room with the red diamond and we went in here and we went to the shop, then we'd have access to the top shelf and all the other shelves below it. So you'd have access to all 3 shelves. And then same thing, if you were in here with the yellow triangle, you'd have access to the middle shelf with the yellow flags, as well as the shelf below it, the green flags as well. So you'd have access to all of those items. So it's definitely most beneficial to be in a room with a red diamond. And that way, if you find a shop, you have access to every item on every shelf in the shop. And as you can see, we'll start at the bottom with the green ones. You've got a health potion that'll heal you for 1, and it just happens instantly. Whenever you buy that, it pops off instantly. So you'd spend 1 gold, you get +1 health. The next one is if you spend 2 gold, you get -1 poison. And if you spend 3 gold, you get +1 food, which equates to getting +1 stamina. All of these values are subject to change. And of course, I want feedback from you guys so that I can tweak things if need be. Then on the second shelf, it's the same stuff. So you've got, if you pay 2 gold, you heal 2 health. If you pay 3 gold, you get -2 poison. And if you pay 4 gold, you get that purple potion at the end, which will bring your fear level down by 2. Then on the top shelf for the red flags, if you pay 3, you get that health potion that gives you +3 health. If you pay 4 gold, you get the poison potion that'll give you -3 to your poison. And if you spend 5 gold, you'll get that oil flask that'll give you +1 to your oil, which would allow you to move your oil up by 1. And remember, once your footsteps reach 10, that will burn up 1 of your oil. And if the oil goes all the way down to 0, as I mentioned before, any subsequent steps that you take in the dungeon, when you move, you'll move up your fear meter as well. And that's going to add up pretty quickly. And you don't want to reach your maximum fear or you go insane and lose the game. So that's how that bit works. And of course, as mentioned before too, whenever you move into the key room, once you're done resolving the card for that room, you acquire the key. And then when you get all the way to the end, it will cost you 1 movement to leave the card as well. And then you'll take all of these off. You'll set them over here. This card would get sent to the discard pile over this way. And then you would take the next card on the dungeon deck and it would serve as the new map card. You'd put your meeple up here outside of the dungeon where the start, where the S is, and you would move 1 space to go into the next floor of the dungeon, and you'd continue on like that. Now, as mentioned earlier, the number of dungeon cards you're going to draw from modifiers is going to change depending on what level of the dungeon you're on. So let's go ahead and set these back over here, give them a shuffle. Let's say we moved into this first room with the triangle, the yellow triangle, and there's an orc in this room. So we would go ahead, we would take out the orc, and then since we're on dungeon level 2, you'd actually draw 2 cards, and you would add the modifiers from both cards. So he would gain, in this case, 1 health, no toughness. He would gain 2 strength, because there's a 1 on each of these, and he would gain 1 speed. So you could see the deeper you get into the dungeon, if you're on level 3, you draw 3. If you're on level 4, you draw 4. So this adds like dynamic scaling to the enemies in the game. It won't be static stats that are added to them. It'll be different every time. So you could end up with stuff with a ton of health, or maybe a ton of strength, or maybe something that's really fast, or even something that's got like a little bit of everything and it's more balanced out. So it's going to be way more dynamic, and enemies are going to feel unique and different as you're moving through the dungeon and fighting enemies. So another thing to mention is the spider does poison. As I mentioned earlier, it's got that 2 and a P. Let's see the other unique modifiers on the card. Let's see if there's any on here. Yeah. So you've got the F, as you can see. If the Banshee rolls a 6, it does 1 F. That is 1 fear. So it will increase your fear by 1. So that's a different modifier right there. You've also got, as you can see here on the mage, a B. It does 2B or 3B. That is burn. Let's say that it rolls a 4 or a 5 and it does 2 burn. You would take one of these dice, you'd put it over here, you put it on 2, and whenever it's your turn to attack, you would take 2 burn damage. So your health would go down by 2, and then you would lower the burn marker by 1. Then the enemy would attack, and then when it's your turn again, you would take 1 burn. So this would go down, and then you would no longer be burned. And same thing for if you had 3 burn. You would take 3, then 2, then 1. But you always take burn at the start of your attack. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think those are the 3 statuses for enemies. Yeah, that's it. So there's poison, there's burn, and then there's fear. So those are the things to keep in mind. So P for poison, F for fear, and B for burn. And then other than that, guys, that is most of the game right there. That is pretty much it. You're going to keep making your way through each level of the dungeon, moving into the rooms, dropping these little tokens in there to clear the rooms as you move through so that you know that you've already been in that room. Because as stated, once you move back into the room, like if we were to clear this room, if I move back in here, we're not going to draw another card and resolve the yellow triangle. It just, nothing would happen. You would still have to use a movement to move back through rooms that you've already been through, though. So that is something to keep in mind. And there are going to be little paths that branch off that you might be like, why would I go over there? You might want to search for things. There might be, you might want to try to go to rooms on a lower floor so that enemies are easier there if you're trying to collect soul fragments or look for loot or whatever it may be. It's typically easier to try to do that the lower you are in the dungeon, because the further you get in, the harder the game is going to get. Or you could just try to bypass it and speed through the dungeon if you want to go to higher levels and go to rooms that are harder to get to. And as I mentioned earlier, guys, some of these cards will have the purple star on the back, like this one, and they're not located on any of the map cards. That is so if you ever move into a room with a red diamond like that and you push your luck, there's a chance of running into something even worse. Like in this case, you would run into a troll. Since the top left symbol is a purple star. Let's say that first we flipped over this one and we're like, nah, we don't want to fight the ooze or rat. Let's push our luck, and we push our luck into this one. Then yeah, you look at that top left symbol, it's purple star, and the purple star on the card says 1 troll. So we'd have to fight a troll, which is really gnarly. So it's always kind of a risk pushing your luck. Something better could happen, something about the same could happen, or something worse can happen than what you were already going to face. And then of course, you would have that leftovers event down at the bottom of the card that you would have to resolve as well, since it has a purple star. So that's what the purple star, that's the purpose of those. It serves so that whenever you move into these hard rooms, that there is a chance that something even gnarlier could happen if you decide to push your luck. And I think that is pretty much about it for the rules, guys. You're going to be moving through the dungeon, looting, killing enemies, trying to get to the key so that you can make it out of each level. And once you acquire 5 soul fragments and you find a room that has the shrine in it, like this one up in the top right, once you're done resolving the card, you could turn in 5 of your soul fragments to get a soul crystal. And an important thing to note too is you can only do that once per shrine. So even if you had like 10 soul fragments and you move into this room and it's got the shrine in it, you can't spend 5, get a crystal, and then spend 5 more for another crystal. You can only combine 5 soul fragments for 1 crystal per shrine that you find. So that's something important to note as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So you're going to keep going through. Ooh, you know what? There is something else I forgot to mention. Some of these items, the armors, namely things that you can wear, they are going to have some stats on them that I need to tell you guys about. So up in the top left corner, for all the items, that is just the item number. So that's whenever you're finding loot and you're rolling the D6, like in this case, we rolled a 4, perfect example, we would get the 4. You know, if we were finding a rare loot, for instance, it's got that 4 up in the top left corner, and then the top right, it's got the R for rare. It'll have a C if it's a common, and if it's an uncommon, it'll have a U up in the top right corner. Then you've got the name, plate mail on this card, a little mock image, and then down below you've got the 3 symbols, which are the important parts. So the shield is toughness. It is going to add, in this case, plate mail 3 to your toughness over here. So whenever you get attacked, you'll mitigate that much damage. The plate mail is really, really powerful. The symbol in the middle with the armor, with the 1 in it, that is your armor class. So the plate mail will actually increase your armor class by 1. So the gnome, instead of having 4 armor class, would have 5 armor class, and enemies would have to roll 5 or better to hit you. And then the last symbol, the third one with the anvil, that is the durability of the item. So each time you were to take damage, and this armor soaks up the damage for you, you have to move the durability down by 1. So you could use these dice over here, just like that. So if you were to get hit and take damage, and the plate mail mitigates some of that damage, you would set that down to 4, and then all the way down to once you get to 1, and then it can break eventually, and this card would go back into the pile of loot to be found once again. So that's how that works. And another thing too is, on the flip side of these cards is another item. So if you ever find a loot, let's say you have the Warhammer and you find a common loot and you roll a 5 on the dice, and that's the buckler, and you're going through here and you're like, well, where's the buckler? You can't get it. If the item that you're supposed to pick up is on the other side of a loot card that you've already acquired, you don't get anything. It's like you find nothing instead. So that's something to play around with too. You're going to notice as you're playing the game that there might be certain items that you really want to have access to. So you're going to have to decide if you want to hang on to certain items or drop certain items, and things like that. So yeah, it adds like a cool dynamic to the game. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. I don't want this video to go on too long, but I want to make sure that I'm explaining this thoroughly enough so that you guys know how to play the game. I think that is basically it, guys. I think that is the majority of the rules for the game right now. I'm sure once I end the video, I'll probably realize I forgot something. Hopefully not, but I can always post comments down below, and yeah, I'll let you guys know if there is anything that I happen to leave out. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments section, and I would be more than happy to answer those questions for you. But dudes, I am super stoked to have this up, and yeah, the game is going to be up on the workshop in Steam. So if you have Tabletop Simulator, you can go to the workshop tab under Tabletop Simulator and then search for the game. I'll also just put a link down below, but yeah, if you search Crypt Crawler, it should show up. Hopefully that will update soon enough on Steam. But yeah, as mentioned, I'll slap the link, the direct link down to it in the description below, so you can go straight to the game and subscribe to it and start playtesting it. And yeah, guys, please give me all the feedback. If you find that things are too difficult, too easy, all that stuff. I want all of your feedback so that I can really hone the game and, you know, get it polished and make sure that it's as fun and as balanced as possible. So thank you guys so much for all your interest. A bunch of you guys commented on my video where I announced that I'm working on the game. The feedback was just incredible. It was absolutely amazing. A bunch of you guys said that you wanted to help playtest. So here we are, guys. Here it is. The game is available to playtest, and yeah, it's ready to go. So with your help, dude, let's turn this into an amazing Mint 10 dungeon crawler game together, guys. And I hope you have an absolute blast playing Crypt Crawler. And let me know your experiences down below in the comments. And hey, guys, until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.